Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I haven't crafted a Star Wars theory in some time, and today I'm really excited to bring you another one that I think will blow a lot of minds and makes a lot of sense. I'm super excited to bring this to your guys' attention, and I want to hear your thoughts on this theory more than anything, as I'm more excited to share with you this than any theory that I've had over at least a year or so. Anyway though, let's go ahead and get into it. The most popular Star Wars theory of all time is Snoke Darth Plagueis, a theory that was constructed and highly popularized during The Force Awakens and Last Jedi Star Wars era. Many fans wanted to deduce the identity of Snoke, as this was really the biggest mystery left in The Force Awakens. Who is Supreme Leader Snoke, Kylo Ren's mysterious dark side master? We only knew a few things about Snoke at the time. It was revealed to us that Snoke had seen both the rise as well as the fall of the Galactic Empire, as well as the fact that Snoke was not a Sith Lord, but was a dark side wielder, and was responsible for Ben Solo's transformation into Kylo Ren and his fall to the dark side of the Force. We knew he was powerful, and some considered him to be ancient. In The Last Jedi, it was a massive shock to everybody when Snoke was cut in half by Kylo Ren, but we did learn some things about Supreme Leader Snoke in Episode 8. Despite what we actually got being very little. We learned that he had a fascination with Darth Vader as well as Darth Sidious, having an obsidian ring, obsidian that he had taken from Darth Vader's very castle. We knew that Snoke had a fascination with transforming Kylo Ren into Darth Vader, motivations that would become more clear in The Rise of Skywalker. And we learned that he was exponentially more powerful than both Rey and Kylo Ren, at least at that point in time. However, we do know that as of the period of The Rise of Skywalker, both Rey and Kylo became far more powerful than in The Last Jedi. It's truly in The Rise of Skywalker, though, where we received the most massive revelations about Supreme Leader Snoke and his true identity. Supreme Leader Snoke was actually created by Darth Sidious, who was survived through a clone body, with Snoke having several clones himself. It is revealed that Snoke was actually a puppet for Darth Sidious, and that he was meant to be the final test for Kylo Ren, to see if Kylo Ren was worthy enough to succeed Darth Vader, and potentially join Darth Sidious as his new apprentice, which is why Snoke makes so many points against Kylo Ren and Darth Vader, and pushes him to become more and more like Vader. Snoke was only created as a test, or rather only used as a test to further Ben Solo. However, this is where we get into the theory of Snoke actually being a clone of Darth Plagueis. A lot of this information will come directly from the Rise of Skywalker novelization, and at the end of it, I hope that you all agree that this does make sense. The first we learn of clones is actually a clone of Palpatine in the very beginning of the Rise of Skywalker novel, when Kylo Ren first encounters Palpatine. The living nightmare before him was fighting a losing battle to sustain the Emperor's putrid flesh. What could you give me? Kylo asked. Emperor Palpatine lived, after a fashion, and Kylo could feel in his very bones that this clone body sheltered the Emperor's actual spirit. It was an imperfect vessel though, unable to contain his immense power. It couldn't last much longer. We learned that the actual way Emperor Palpatine managed to survive was to send his essence or his spirit into a cloned body on Exegol, as he managed to do this before his body was destroyed on the second Death Star, after his betrayal by Darth Vader. In another excerpt from the novel, we actually learned that this was Darth Plagueis' method to cheat death as well, which will lead us further into the clone body theory. However, first I would like to read this passage, where Darth Plagueis is even mentioned several times. Falling down a solid shaft, sharp, the betrayal. A very tall figure dressed in black and wearing a helmet was shrinking rapidly. His own apprentice had turned against him, as he himself had turned against Plagueis, whose secret to immortality he had stolen. Plagueis had not acted fast enough at his own time of death, but Sidious, feeling the flickering light in his apprentice, had been ready for years. Then the Emperor, falling and dying, called on all the dark power of the Force to push his consciousness far, far away, to a secret place he had been preparing. His body was dead, an empty vessel, long before he found the bottom of the well, and his mind shook to a new consciousness in a new, painful, temporary body. It was too soon. The secret place had not completed its preparations. The transfer was imperfect, and the clone body was not enough. Maybe Plagueis having the last laugh after all. Perhaps his secret remained secret because Palpatine was trapped in a broken and a dying form. The heretics of the Sith Eternal still worked, spliced genes, reinforced the tissue, created unnatural abominations in the hope that one of these strand threads would succeed and become a worthy receptacle. The heretics would do anything, risk anything, sacrifice anything to create a cradle for their divine consciousness. Nothing worked, but his efforts were not entirely in vain. Here it's clear that the heretics of the Sith Eternal actually attempted to create more clone bodies for Palpatine's spirit to possess, as the body that Palpatine is currently possessing in The Rise of Skywalker is imperfect, putrid, and decaying rapidly. This leads us directly into the theory. I believe that Snoke is actually a clone body of Darth Plagueis. We learn later on in the novel that some of these clone bodies can actually use the Force, but are abominations, similarly to why Plagueis is so damaged naturally, and the intense decay that his body is suffering. Perhaps again, Snoke is an imperfect clone of Darth Plagueis, just like the body is imperfect that Palpatine's consciousness is currently possessing. Perhaps Emperor Palpatine is not the original Sith Lord that created this fortress on Exegol. We know in fact that the fortress is ancient, and I believe it was actually Darth Plagueis that attempted to clone himself there far before Palpatine did, and that these leftover Snokes are actually again the failed bodies of Plagueis. This would explain why Snoke is so inherently powerful, as if he had the power of Darth Plagueis, that would make complete and total sense. However, just as Palpatine said, Plagueis in his moment of death did not act fast enough. Whether or not it was Plagueis' intention to possess Palpatine or send his consciousness to a clone body is unknown, but it would make sense that he would need to send it to a clone body just as his apprentice did decades later. But this still doesn't explain how Snoke is conscious, as again Snoke is not Darth Plagueis and is not Darth Plagueis' consciousness. This too is explained in the Rise of Skywalker novelization with Palpatine's son, Rey's father, who is also revealed to be a failed clone of Palpatine, but not an exact clone. This is what it says. The heretics of the Sith Eternal toiled, splicing genes, bolstering tissue, creating unnatural abominations. Nothing worked, but their efforts were not entirely in vain. One genetic strand cast lived, thrived, even a not quite identical clone, his son. But he was a useless, powerless failure. Palpatine could not even bear to look upon such disappointing ordinaries. The boy's only worth would to lay in continuing the bloodline through more natural methods. We have learned before that Snoke is not actually a clone of Palpatine, but this proves that the Palpatine clones can actually develop personalities of their own, just as Snoke functions separately from Palpatine, as the filmmakers explain that Snoke is not actually being controlled or his every move by Palpatine, just his purpose and his creation. It was also explained that Palpatine utilized Snoke as somebody to reign in his stead over the First Order and what remained of the Empire, too weak to reveal himself from the shadows immediately. It's somewhat ironic that Palpatine through some means would allow his master to live out his dream of ultimate galactic domination over an empire. Anyway though, my friends, that is my brand new theory, and yes, I do believe that Snoke is actually a failed clone of Darth Plagueis. We do not actually know what species Darth Plagueis was in Star Wars canon, as it's never been stated. In Legends, we know him as a moon, but again in canon, it's never been stated exactly what species Darth Plagueis is. In fact, at one point, George Lucas even mentioned that Darth Plagueis could have been a Neimoidian. Again though, my friends, I would love to hear your thoughts on this, and what do you think of Snoke actually being a failed clone of Darth Plagueis, and Darth Plagueis not acting fast enough to transfer his body into Snoke, and for Snoke to rule in his place for some time, as well as prepare Kylo Ren to join Palpatine's side. There is of course the obvious possibility that this is completely false and it does have nothing to do with Snoke's true origin, and that Snoke is simply an abomination created and used by Palpatine. However, I do really like this theory. If we could get this video to 5,000 likes, that would help the channel out immensely, and I would really appreciate it. As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching, may the Force be with you, and have a great day.